Have you ever wondered why some gardens explode with massive juicy vegetables, while others barely produce a single tomato? I used to struggle with weak plants and tiny harvests until I discovered a secret that flipped everything upside down. Today, we are talking about a method that literally changes everything you know about growing food. I am going to show you how to build the ultimate foundation for a record harvest, and I promise you, by the end of this video, you will look at your dirt in a completely different way. But here is the hook. You probably think you need expensive chemical fertilizers and hours of backbreaking labor to get good results. That is totally wrong. In fact, doing less work is actually the secret to growing more food. We are going to uncover the hidden truth about what plants really want, and it might just shock you. Do you currently spend hours digging and weeding your garden? Tell me in the comments, because you might want to stop immediately after hearing this. To understand why this method is so powerful, we need to look back at how farming used to be done. For decades, traditional agriculture taught us to treat the garden like a factory. People believed that dirt was just an empty container. They thought you had to constantly turn the earth with heavy machines and pump it full of artificial chemicals to force plants to grow. But modern science has completely changed our understanding of nature. We now know that the ground beneath our feet is not dead at all. It is a highly complex, living ecosystem known as the soil food web. Long before human beings started farming, huge forests grew massive trees without any chemical sprays or tractors. Nature already figured out the perfect system for growing giant plants. Our incredible method simply copies what nature has been doing for millions of years. It is about creating a biological partnership between your vegetables and the earth. Once you understand this historical shift from chemical farming to biological gardening, you unlock the true power of your backyard. Let us start with the very first step of this amazing foundation. You might think that soil is just dead brown stuff waiting for you to add plant food. But I am here to tell you that is a huge myth. The truth is that healthy soil is a bustling, living city of microscopic life. Imagine a busy metropolis filled with tiny workers who are constantly cooking and preparing meals for your vegetables. If you want a record harvest, your main job is not feeding the plant at all. Your job is feeding these tiny workers. We call this the living soil foundation. Think of it like cooking a massive holiday feast for your family. You would not just hand them raw flour and expect them to be happy. You prepare the meal properly. In the garden, you do this by putting organic matter right on top of the ground. This creates a natural, all-you-can-eat buffet for earthworms and good bacteria. When I first started doing this, my yard was just hard clay. But within a few months, it turned into dark, rich earth. Everything grew 10 times faster. This shift from feeding plants to feeding the soil changes the entire game. Have you ever tried feeding your soil directly? Now we move on to the second crucial part of our method. For generations, people believed that turning the dirt with a shovel or a machine was absolutely necessary. They thought it helped the roots breathe and grow deeper. Let me tell you, this is one of the most destructive gardening myths out there. Digging up your garden is actually destroying your foundation. Imagine a beautiful, fully functioning house where everything is in order. Now imagine a massive tornado ripping through that house, tossing all the furniture and walls into the air. That is exactly what happens to the microscopic life when you dig the earth. The delicate fungal networks are torn apart. The good bacteria are exposed to the harsh sun and burn up. Instead of digging, our method uses a no-dig approach. You simply leave the ground alone. You let the earthworms do all the heavy lifting for you. They are nature's tiny, biological ploughs. When I put away my shovel, I noticed an incredible difference. My plants became incredibly strong, and I saved my back from hours of painful labour. Why do the hard work when nature can do it for you? The third secret to this incredible foundation involves dealing with weeds. Everyone hates weeds. The common belief is that you have to spend your weekends on your knees, pulling them out one by one, or worse, spraying toxic chemicals. But we are going to debunk that myth right now. The best way to beat weeds is to never let them see the sun in the first place. We do this by using a simple, ordinary material that you probably throw away every week, brown cardboard. By laying plain cardboard directly over the grass or weeds, you create a natural shield. Think of it like putting a heavy blanket over a messy room. The weeds underneath get smothered and eventually die. But here is the magic part. As the cardboard slowly breaks down, it actually becomes food for the earthworms. It is a completely organic weed barrier that improves your soil over time. I once covered a patch of terrible weeds with cardboard, added some good earth on top, and planted tomatoes right away. The tomatoes thrived and the weeds never came back. It is practically magic. Do you spend too much time fighting weeds in your backyard? Let us dive into the fourth building block of our record-breaking method. This is where we bring in the heavy artillery, and by that, I mean compost. But there is a huge myth that all compost is exactly the same. People think you can buy any cheap bag from the store and get a miracle result. That is totally wrong. True, high-quality compost is alive. Building the perfect compost layer is like baking a masterclass layered cake. You need the right balance of green materials, like grass clippings, and brown materials, like dry leaves. When you spread a thick layer of this rich compost over your cardboard shield, you are giving your garden a massive energy boost. It holds moisture like a giant sponge and provides slow-release nutrition all season long. I like to think of compost as a premium vitamin supplement for the garden. When I started making my own balanced compost, my peppers grew twice as large as the year before. They were bursting with flavour and colour. The quality of your compost directly determines the size of your harvest. Have you ever tried making your own layered compost at home? The fifth element of our method sounds like something out of a science fiction movie. We are going to talk about mycorrhizal fungi. Many gardeners believe that plant roots do all the work by themselves. They think the root just reaches out and drinks water. That is a massive myth. In reality, most healthy plants have a secret partnership with microscopic fungi underground. Think of this fungi network as a super-fast internet connection for your garden. These tiny fungal threads attach to the plant roots and stretch far out into the soil. They mine for water and rare minerals and then deliver them right back to the plant. In exchange, the plant gives the fungi sugars. It is a perfect natural trade agreement. When you use our no-dig method and add living compost, you protect and grow this underground internet. If you use chemical fertilizers, you actually kill this helpful fungus. Once I started adding fungal inoculants to my seeds, my plants survived heavy droughts without any stress at all. They had an invisible army fetching water for them. Are you ready to connect your garden to the underground internet? Moving on to the sixth secret, which is the absolute golden rule of this entire method: mulching. There is an old-fashioned idea that a clean garden should have bare, exposed dirt between the plants. People think bare dirt looks neat and professional. Let me debunk that myth right away. Bare soil is dead soil. Having bare dirt in your garden is like walking outside in the middle of a freezing snowstorm without a winter coat. Nature hates naked earth. That is why weeds grow so fast. They are nature's way of covering up the bare spots. To build a foundation for a record harvest, you must keep the ground covered at all times with a thick layer of organic mulch. You can use straw, wood chips, or chopped leaves. This mulch acts like a protective thermal blanket. It keeps the roots cool in the blazing summer and warm in the chilly nights. I put a heavy layer of straw around my eggplants one summer. While my neighbour's plants burned up in the heat wave, mine stayed green and produced a massive amount of fruit. The soil underneath was always cool and moist. Never leave your dirt naked. Let us talk about watering, which brings us to our seventh foundational step. The biggest myth about watering is that you need to give your plants a little bit of water every single day. Many people stand out there with a hose and sprinkle the top of the dirt for a few minutes. This is actually causing a lot of harm. When you water shallowly, the roots stay near the surface. They become lazy and vulnerable to the hot sun. Our method uses the concept of deep and infrequent watering. Think of it like training an athlete for a long-distance marathon. You want to train the roots to dive deep into the earth, searching for moisture. By giving the garden a massive, heavy soaking, just once or twice a week, the water penetrates deep down. The roots follow that water. Combined with our thick layer of compost and mulch, the soil acts like a giant underground reservoir. During a dry spell, my deep-rooted tomatoes did not even wilt, because they were drinking from a hidden reserve deep below the surface. Deep watering creates resilient, tough plants that can survive harsh weather. How often do you water your garden right now? Our 8th block focuses on a concept that many people completely ignore: companion planting. A common myth is that you should grow vegetables in perfectly straight, isolated rows, carrots in one box, onions in another box, and tomatoes completely alone. But nature does not grow things in isolated boxes. Different plants can actually help each other grow better. This is called creating a plant synergy. For example, if you plant basil right next to your tomatoes, the strong smell of the basil confuses pest insects. It acts like an invisible force field. Or you can plant tall corn to provide natural shade for sensitive lettuce during the hot summer. Think of companion planting like assembling a team of superheroes. Each plant has a special power that helps the whole group succeed. When I started mixing my crops together, my pest problems almost completely disappeared. The garden looked wild and beautiful, and the plants were incredibly healthy. I stopped treating my vegetables like lonely prisoners and started building a vibrant, diverse community. Have you ever tried planting flowers right next to your vegetables? Step number 9 is all about changing how we look at insects. Most people panic when they see a bug in the garden. The immediate myth is that all bugs are bad and must be destroyed with chemical sprays. This is a terrible mistake. If you kill all the bugs, you are destroying your own foundation. The truth is that 90% of the insects in a healthy garden are actually your friends. We call them beneficial insects, things like ladybugs, praying mantises, and tiny wasps. Think of them as an army of tiny mercenaries that work for you for free. They patrol the leaves and eat the bad pests that try to attack your vegetables. To get a record harvest, you need to invite these mercenaries into your yard. You do this by planting specific flowers like dill and marigolds right among your crops. These flowers provide nectar and pollen for the good bugs. Once I planted a border of bright yellow flowers around my cabbages, the ladybugs moved in and completely wiped out an aphid invasion in 3 days. I did not lift a finger. You must learn to work with the bugs, not against them. The 10th secret of our method deals with a confusing topic for many beginners: soil pH. You hear people talk about acidic or alkaline dirt all the time. The myth is that you need expensive testing kits and chemical powders to perfectly adjust the pH level every single month. While pH is important, constantly fighting it with chemicals is a losing battle. Our living soil method fixes this problem automatically. When you build a thick foundation of rich organic compost, the microscopic life actually buffers the pH for you. The bacteria and fungi work like a smart, self-adjusting thermostat. They alter the chemistry around the roots to exactly what the plant needs at that moment. It is truly brilliant. I used to stress out about testing my soil all the time. But once I focused completely on adding thick layers of organic matter, my plants stopped showing signs of nutrient lockout. The soil naturally balanced itself out over time. It took all the complicated math and science out of gardening. Just feed the soil web, and it will balance the chemistry for you. Is not that a relief? Let us move to the 11th strategy, which is incredibly powerful, but rarely used by home gardeners. It is called the chop and drop technique. The myth here is that when a plant finishes producing, or when you prune leaves, you must carefully rake everything up and throw it in a yard waste bin. We think the garden needs to look perfectly clean and sterile, but in a forest, nobody rakes the leaves. When leaves fall, they break down and feed the giant trees. We can copy this natural recycling system. Whenever I trim the lower branches off my tomatoes, or when a lettuce plant goes to seed, I just chop the plant into small pieces and drop it right there on the ground. Think of it as free, instant mulch. The earthworms come up at night, grab the chopped leaves and pull them down into the dirt to make fresh fertilizer. You are literally turning your garden waste back into garden gold. This saves you so much time and keeps all the precious nutrients right where they belong. Chopping and dropping is the ultimate lazy gardener trick that produces amazing results. Try dropping your next handful of pulled weeds right on the soil surface. Our 12th building block is about fixing terrible compacted ground without ever using a machine. If you have hard clay, the myth is that you must rent a heavy gas-powered tiller to break it apart. But we already know tilling is bad. So, how do we fix hard ground? We use nature's biological drill bits. These are called deep-rooting cover crops. Plants like the daikon radish send a massive, thick taproot deep into the hard clay. They aggressively push through the tough layers, opening up channels for air and water. When winter comes, the radish dies and rots right in the ground. It leaves behind a perfect deep tunnel filled with rich organic matter. It is like having thousands of tiny silent workers drilling holes in your yard all season long. I had a section of yard that was so hard, a shovel would bounce right off it. I threw down some daikon radish seeds in the fall. By the next spring, the ground was soft, fluffy, and ready for planting delicate carrots. You can repair almost any terrible dirt if you use the right biological drill bits. Have you ever grown a cover crop before? Step 13 is vital for getting that massive harvest we promised. It is about choosing the right seeds. The myth here is that a seed is just a seed. People think they can grab any random packet off a supermarket shelf and expect a miracle, but that is like wearing heavy winter clothing in the middle of a hot desert. It just does not fit the environment. Your garden has its own unique microclimate. The amount of sun, the type of wind, and the local pests are specific to your exact yard. To get a record harvest, you should look for locally adapted seeds or heirloom varieties that have a history of thriving in your specific region. These seeds have genetic memories. They know how to survive local heat waves or resist local bugs. I once planted a generic store-bought squash, and it died from a simple fungus. The next year, I bought seeds from a local farmer who lived 5 miles away. That squash grew into a massive monster and gave me 40 pounds of food. It was perfectly adapted to my backyard. Take the time to find the best genetics for your specific location. The 14th block of our foundation revolves around a concept called crop rotation. Even if you have a tiny backyard space, you must pay attention to this. The myth is that plants love growing in the exact same spot year after year. People build a tomato box and plant tomatoes there for 10 years straight. But think about it like this. Imagine eating the exact same meal every single day for your entire life. You would eventually run out of specific vitamins. Plants are the same way. Tomatoes pull very specific nutrients out of the earth. If you plant them in the same spot again, the ground becomes tired and empty. It also allows specific pests and diseases to build up and wait in the dirt for next year. To avoid this, you simply move your plant families around. If you grow heavy-feeding tomatoes in a bed this year, plant light-feeding beans or peas there next year to restore the nitrogen. Just by rotating my crops in a simple 3-year circle, my harvest size increased dramatically and I stopped seeing mysterious plant diseases. Keep your plants moving and your soil will stay fresh and strong. Let us explore the 15th secret, which is a fantastic way to give your plants an organic supercharge. We are talking about liquid compost tea. The myth is that the only way to quickly boost a yellow-tired plant is to pour chemical blue water on it. But chemical fertilizers act like a sugar rush. The plant gets a quick spike in energy, followed by a terrible crash. Instead, we brew a living liquid by soaking high-quality compost in water with a little bit of molasses and bubbling air through it. You multiply the good bacteria by the billions. Think of compost tea as a healthy, organic energy drink for your garden. When you spray this brown liquid onto the leaves and pour it around the roots, you are instantly delivering a massive workforce of microscopic helpers directly to the plant. I use compost tea right before my plants start flowering. It causes them to push out dozens of extra blossoms. The vegetables grow larger and the leaves turn a deep, vibrant green. It is the ultimate secret weapon for a record harvest. It costs almost nothing to make. and the results are absolutely explosive. Our 16th foundational step is all about the art of observation. The biggest myth in gardening is that it requires constant, back-breaking physical labour every single day. People think if they are not sweating and digging, they are doing it wrong. But with our living soil method, the hard work is done by the earthworms and the fungi. Your main job changes from a labourer to a smart manager. Think of a good boss in a factory. The boss does not do every single task. They stand back, observe the workers, and make small adjustments. You need to walk your garden every morning with a cup of coffee. Look under the leaves for early signs of bugs. Check the moisture level under the mulch with your finger. By simply observing closely, you can catch a small problem before it becomes a disaster. I used to exhaust myself, pulling every tiny weed. Now I spend 10 peaceful minutes just looking at my plants. If I see a dry spot, I add a little water. If I see an aphid, I wash it off. Smart observation replaces hours of heavy labour. Gardening should be a relaxing joy, not a punishment. The 17th step focuses on the proper way to harvest your hard work. There is a strange myth that you should wait until the very end of the season to pick all your vegetables at once. People want to see a giant pile of food all on the same day, but holding back actually hurts your total yield. Many plants like beans, cucumbers and peppers operate on a simple rule. The more you pick, the more they grow. The plant's only goal is to reproduce by making mature seeds. If you pick the fruit while it is young and tender, the plant panics. It thinks it failed its mission, so it immediately grows more flowers to try again. Think of it like giving a plant a haircut so it grows back thicker. If you leave a giant cucumber on the vine until it turns yellow, the plant stops producing completely. I walk out every 2 days and harvest everything that is ready. By picking constantly, my single zucchini plant produces fresh food all summer long, giving me 3 times more weight than if I waited. Do not be afraid to pick your vegetables aggressively. Our 18th block tackles the crucial transition period at the end of the season. The myth is that when the weather gets cold and the plants die, the garden is officially closed. People rip everything out, leave the dirt bare, and ignore it until spring. But remember what we learned about bare soil. It is a disaster. The microscopic life in your foundation needs protection from freezing temperatures. Preparing your garden for winter is just as important as planting in the spring. Think of it like tucking a child into bed with a thick, warm quilt. Before the deep freeze hits, we add a massive, heavy layer of fresh compost and thick straw over the entire space. We leave the roots of the dead plants in the ground to rot and feed the earthworms all winter. Underneath that warm blanket, the soil food web stays active much longer. When I pull the straw back in early spring, the ground is completely thawed, incredibly soft, and smelling like a forest floor. It gives me a 4-week head start on my neighbours. Never leave your garden naked in the winter. We have reached the 19th step of our incredible method. This is where we talk about patience and trusting the process. The modern world has taught us to expect instant gratification. The myth is that if you pour a magical potion on a plant today, it will be huge tomorrow. But true, record-breaking gardening is a biological process, not a chemical trick. Building a massive living soil foundation takes a little bit of time to fully establish. When you first stop digging and start adding organic layers, your garden goes through a healing phase. It is recovering from the trauma of being turned over. You might not see a miracle in the first 2 weeks. Think of it like someone recovering from a long illness and starting a healthy diet. It takes a moment for the strength to return, but once that biological engine starts running, it becomes unstoppable. In my first year of this method, the harvest was good. But by the 3rd year, the harvest was absolutely unbelievable. The soil was so alive that I literally could not stop the vegetables from growing. Patience is the ultimate fertilizer. The 20th and final block of our main foundation is about expanding the system. Once you see how successful this method is in a small space, the myth is that it is too hard to scale up. People think they can manage a small raised bed without digging, but a large yard requires a tractor. That is simply not true. You can use the exact same principles on a larger scale by building lasagna garden rows. You lay down long strips of cardboard, pile up the organic matter, and create permanent walking paths between them. You never step on the growing rows, which prevents the earth from compacting. Think of it like building a permanent, high-yielding biological factory. You focus all your compost and water only on the growing areas, not on the paths. This saves massive amounts of resources. I expanded my small 10-foot garden into a massive backyard farm using just cardboard, leaves and compost. I never bought a machine. The larger the system gets, the more stable the biology becomes. It is a beautiful, self-sustaining loop. You now have all the tools to change everything. And there you have it, the absolute climax of our journey. We have completely dismantled the old broken rules of gardening. The incredible truth is that the secret to a massive, record-breaking harvest is not forcing the plants to grow. The real turn of events is stepping back and letting nature do the heavy lifting. By stopping the destructive digging, laying down protective cardboard, and building a rich, thick foundation of living compost, you create an unstoppable biological engine right in your backyard. You went from a tired labourer fighting the dirt to a master conductor leading a symphony of earthworms, fungi, and beneficial insects. This method literally changes everything, saving your back, saving your time, and rewarding you with more fresh, organic food than you ever thought possible. Thank you so much for watching and learning how to heal the earth while feeding your family. If this video changed the way you think about gardening, please hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and share it with a friend. I want to hear from you now. What is the biggest, most frustrating challenge you face in your garden right now? Tell me your story in the comments below and let us grow together.